Hey, Aga.
Hey Lance, how are you?
I'm good.
How are you? How's your day been?
Neil?
Hi, Lance.
Well, welcome to my YouTube channel.
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. So just a quick intro. This is Aga. Obviously, I'm ex-CA since seven. I'm looking after partnerships here for StockTrim now, and we have Neil. So Neil looks after customer success and sales at StockTrim. So
Did you
that's
say did you say you used to work for Sin 7?
That's correct. Yeah, I
Oh,
used to. We're all based out of New Zealand. So I used to look after APAC region partners in the APAC region actually. So we just haven't had a sort of a chance to actually interact too much because obviously you might have dealt with our US team a lot more than myself. But yeah, I was on the team up until 2020 March 2023.
yeah, it was Sin 7, I think, that got me acquainted with StockTrim. That's when I first heard of StockTrim years ago,
Right.
was when I was
Yeah,
getting to know Sin
yeah,
7 and
yeah.
Yeah,
Cogsy.
it was almost 3 years ago that we did a prior call. So
Oh yeah.
yeah.
So you guys are based out of New Zealand, huh?
hmm
Okay.
Yeah, correct,
And
correct.
what's your role there, Neil? What?
so I normally handle customers once they've been on or once subscriptions have started, but sort of stepping back into doing initial demos for customers as well as we've got some changes in our sales team. So I'm assisting there. So yeah, it's customer success, it's help desk, it's product product development, product manager. So a bit of a jack of all trades, really.
And so I've never seen stock trim. I'm anxious to see it today.
Yeah.
My understanding is it's forecasting, purchasing tool, um, things like that. Oh, and here it is. Awesome.
That yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Neil, I'll let Neil take over because he can show you what the system looks like, what it does. Yeah, there's quite a bit of obviously background to this as to how StockTrim kind of came into being. Um, so the whole sort of point of StockTrim is actually to match pretty much supply with the demand, right? So a lot of
Yeah.
customers are still on pen and paper using spreadsheets. Manual errors obviously occur, and it's not easy to actually do forecasting and inventory planning by hand all the time, right? When you have, multiple people, let's say, running a business, obviously working on something. So a system in place such as StockTrim actually helps with that quite a bit. And obviously there's a lot of benefits to this. Accuracy is one, accuracy of data, saving of time. Obviously, that's very critical for the businesses and for the customers. And most importantly, I guess the stockouts. So just so they can keep track of their stocks, what inventory levels they have, what they want to purchase, and what the sales are looking like, for example, and just kind of plan it out ahead and 3 months, 6 months, year down the road, and just keep track of that. So that is what StockTrim in a nutshell does. With accuracy, obviously, that is very critical when it comes to inventory and demand planning, forecasting.
And
Uh, yeah,
who's
so that's
your, oh, sorry,
no,
who's
no, go ahead. Sorry.
your ideal customer? What?
So the way we sit is pretty much is the SME space. Or sort of, if I have to kind of define an ICP, bullet point wise, for example, like million to $20 million customer, for example,
Okay.
somebody who's handling your average, I don't know, $10,000 to $20,000 SKU. Sorry, 10 to 20,000 SKUs, let's say. That
Okay.
is where StockTrim. Now we can cater to wholesale businesses, manufacturing businesses, some retail and e-commerce as well. Okay. So yeah, I mean, we're not bound by sort of how large a business is. It's just a matter of if they can fit the bill, for example, right? So let's say revenue doesn't really matter, but it's more of a what the operation looks like, how many active SKUs they want to manage, let's say in StockTrim. So they could have 100,000 SKUs, but if they want to do forecasting for 10,000, so they can use StockTrim, right? So that's how sort of we manage it.
And how long has stock trim been around for?
Correct me, Neil. Was it 7 years, I suppose?
Yeah, so since 2017.
Yes.
2017. Yeah.
I like that number. It shows some maturity and it's not too old. I think the age of a software says a lot. Too new is not great. Too old is not great. 7 years is a good number, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number. It's
So
a lucky
how
number
big
7,
of
I
a
guess.
how big of a company are you? How many customers do you have? How many employees do you have?
So we're sitting around a few hundred customers, but it's a very, very small team. So I think we're only sort of 5 to 6, staff or contractors at the moment. So
Yeah.
and that's the benefit of a SaaS business, right? Is that we can service anybody basically anywhere in the world. All the infrastructure is cloud-based. It's just data into the servers in the US, for example, and then data back out. So
So
Yeah.
we got to know each other or got introduced. We're getting to know each other right now, but we were first introduced through the common Sin7 relationship.
yes.
And Sin7 started out integrating with Xero, and then later with QuickBooks, and then later came to the US. Has that kind of been your path of growth as well? Xero, then QuickBooks, then
Yeah, we certainly grew out of the software ecosystem here in New Zealand. So yeah, Sin7, Xero, Unleashed, and then and that's where our customer base has grown from organically as New Zealand, Australia, and we're now heavily in the US and the UK, some Europe, some South Africa, a smattering in other countries as well. But yeah, the core is New Zealand, Australia, US, UK, so
yeah.
Canada. Yeah.
And then do you have any staff, any employees in the US right now? Any partner?
Not at present. So, but we can pretty much offer full US time zone support if that's required. But generally, it's sort of late afternoon EST from sort of mid morning Mountain PST onwards is that we can offer sort of live support from. So
Now, typically, forecasting software, purchasing software, automated software like that can be kind of pricey. Um, uh, you caught my attention when you said your ideal customer is between $1 million a year to 20 million a year, a customer that does that type of revenue, because that's the customer that we work with basically. In that range, mostly the $5 million to $10 million customer, but ranging anywhere from $1 million to 30 million a year. Wholesale distribution, manufacturing, e-commerce,
that's
type of
perfect. Yeah.
customer. And so, awesome. Okay, great. Yeah, you've got it up here. So,
Yeah, so pricing is based on the amount of SKUs that they keep current within the system. So SKUs can be will include, for example, all elements within a bill of material structure or a parent variant relationship. So like for clothing, for example, if you've got that sort of size color matrix, we can have parent SKUs for overall styles, but then every size color combination of a t-shirt or a dress, for example, can be an active SKU in StockTrim and will count towards the plan if that's what they want to do.
yeah.
As well as just normal SKUs that for import and distribution. So it's just in and out. That's just a standard SKU. Yeah. So basically most customers are on these sort of 3 tiers here, primarily here on the Growth and Ultra, and we offer monthly and annual pricing, like most SaaS businesses do. So and it's just a straight subscription. Directly onto the customer's credit card, nice and easy. There's no other charges unless you want extra users above and beyond what is allocated within the existing plans. So it's incredibly easy to get set up, especially if you're using a system like Fishbowl or Sin7. It's just literally an API connection, and then we're up and we get the data running, get up and running, and then it's just refining the background parameters to ensure that the results that we're producing are accurate for every SKU.
And that's why you're on my channel today. That's what got us from our introduction several years ago to today is you now have a connection with Fishbowl.
Yes.
So tell me about that. How does that connection with Fishbowl work exactly?
So once you've registered for a trial, you come to our load data screen here, click on the Fishbowl icon, and we need server URL address and then your Fishbowl username and password. So it's pretty straightforward to get set up, and then you just tick all the boxes down the left-hand side and click load. And the initial data will come across that, depending on the size of the number of SKUs and the amount of sales history that's in the Fishbowl account. We can import up to 2 years of sales history. So that will come across in the first big sync. So that first sync might take maybe a couple of hours to complete. And then after that, syncing or regular syncs from that point will only probably take, depending on the number of SKUs, might only take sort of 5 to 10 minutes, hopefully, each time to refresh the data.
So let's take a minute to look at this. Could you go back to that previous screen that you were just on? I think this is good stuff here. So load products, load sales orders, load purchase orders. You're talking about history. So I imagine that part of that is history. Load bills of materials, suppliers, customers, locations, and refresh. Okay, so you actually pull over, you said sales history, and I imagine you're going to want open purchase orders. Now you say bills of material. What about work orders? Or is that synonymous?
Yeah, no. If there's items in production, if there's production orders in place, for example, those will come across as a stock on order figure.
Yeah, and I wanted to clarify because different software programs have different languages, right? They call different things, production orders, manufacturer orders, assembly orders. There's all kinds of names. And so I just want to clarify, when you say bill of material, do you mean the Fishbowl bill of material, or are you maybe talking about work order?
No, it should be. So bill of materials is always what is the actual product bill of material structure. That's the relationships that we want to bring across, and so that we can forecast for every part of the BOM, basically.
Okay. All right. So once you pull over that, then what's next? How does it? That's how you get it set up, I guess.
Yeah. So then, so the data will come across, and we'll produce an initial set of forecasts, what I call the default sort of view. The dashboard will populate like you see here. It'll show how many SKUs that we've by default pulled across. It'll give an initial value for what we think you're overstocked on, an initial value, and how many SKUs we currently think there's a stock out risk from, and then populate the graphs and the tables here. But then the real action happens here on the order plan, and then below that on the individual SKU pages. So here on the order plan, for example, this is where you can come in and search by individual products. You can drill down by and forecast at individual locations. You can drill down by your supplier details, by category, subcategory. We can look at the bill of material structure. We can look at parent variant structures. So like I said about the clothing example, if there's parent codes and then all the variants, color size combinations underneath that, we can drill down depending on what the relationships are. We can drill down by overall sales rate that we've initially analyzed. And then every SKU gets a line of data here on the order plan screen that shows what's currently on hand, what's currently on order in production, for example, what's the lead time that we're using as the initial point of calculation, what's the demand that we see over that lead time initially, what's the reorder point that we've established based on the calculations, and we'll have a look at some of these figures in a bit more detail in a second. And then finally, and most importantly, what's the number in this column here? If the number in this column here is red, that's a call to action for the client to do something. Now, if it's just like for is it New Line Health we're talking about here? What's the client's?
Oh, we could talk about any client. This is
New Light.
Yeah,
so
this is
for
generic.
New Light,
this is just a general recording for everyone on the YouTube channel. So
okay, right. So these could be, if it's just an import wholesale distribution business, they'll just be straight purchase order recommendations for you, for example, to say this is how much you need to go away and order from your suppliers right now in order to prevent a stock out, going forward, for example. If there's a bill of material relationship, like structure like we've got here, for example, so here's my parent good. In this case, I'm building up tents. Here's my production recommendation for how many tents to go away and build up. And then I can explode out the BOM and see how many of each individual component in that BOM to go away and order from the relevant suppliers. If I've got parent variants as well, so if I look for my shoe SKU, so here, for example, I've got a shoe parent code, and I've got 9 variants codes underneath that. So, color, size combinations under here. So here at the parent level, this is what we're saying we have to order overall for that parent style of products. And then there's the individual size color recommendations for how much to order for each product. So in this case, I need to order of green, blue, size 9. I need to order 84 units. But when I scroll down, I can see these numbers here in green to show that I've got excess stock of green, blue, size 10, size 11, and size 9 of these individual products.
Nice.
So no matter what the product type, if it's just a straight import, wholesale, like I've got my favorite SKU, my black water bottle. Just go down here. There it is. So no matter if it's just straight import wholesale distribution, if it's got a bill of material structure, if it's got a product parent variant relationship, however people talk about that structure, it could be child parent or product variant, that we can handle any of those type of product structures and forecast for all involved. And then here on the SKU page, this is where we show the sales data that we're working with, monthly sales quantities. We then project forward 24 months in advance. So that's what this pink line is here. So I can scroll through, see what the current estimated forecast is, potential sales if you've got the stock available each month going forward right out for 2 years in advance. The client can always come in at this point and overwrite manually if they think they've got a different target that they want to achieve for that month. So here, let's put in, for example, I want to sell 500 water bottles in January, and I'm going to put this product on sale in January after Christmas. And now that's been updated to show that's my new target for that month. If that's within the time frame that we're looking at down here, then we'll pick up that change in the forecast, that sums in the forecast demand figure here, and then it flows down through the calculation to ultimately say what is the action number you need to take over here. So on here we can see on hand, anything on order or in production. We're building in some buffer stock, buffer demand automatically. There's a formula that calculates that, and then we take into account also the parameters, the MOQ from the supplier, for example, the batch size, so the number of units that come in the carton, and then you can also put in minimum, maximum stock levels if you want to have those values be parameters that we have to obey in the forecasting side as well. So there's multiple forms of buffer. I like to say there's multiple forms of buffer that you can build into the forecast to ultimately accomplish one of the goals that we're trying to achieve for you, which is reducing out of stocks going forward. So we can build in buffer time, we can build in buffer demand, and we can build in actual buffer hard safety stock in terms of min shelf level down here, for example. So you can deploy all 3 of those forms of buffer or none at all. It's entirely up to the client. It's very, very easy to come in and edit here on the screen and do bulk edits as well. So
I see minimum shelf level and maximum shelf level, and then minimum order quantity. And I think before you showed a reorder point as well, like an alert level, and that's what that is. Okay.
Yes.
And so you're helping the user automatically calculate the reorder point. So that's good. And are you will this software, after it recommends, is it just a reporting tool, or is it a purchase order creation tool or work order creation tool? Can the customer click a button in here and see it create a purchase order or a work order in Fishbowl?
Yes, so we can create purchase orders and send those back to Fishbowl. So we're trying to speed up the PO creation process so that a supply chain person or an owner isn't having to manually type in codes and quantities. We can bulk create purchase orders here and push them across to Fishbowl. I think we'll at some point also do manufacturing orders as well, but at the moment it's just purchase orders.
Okay, that's good because that's important because Fishbowl has a forecasting tool, but the part that Fishbowl is missing is the connection between the forecasting tool and the purchasing. There's not a button to say, okay, I'll accept the recommendation and let's create a purchase order from that recommendation from the forecasting tool. Now, Fishbowl has an auto PO tool that works off of reorder points, but for companies that have seasonal sales, they're required to update their reorder points frequently, which can be somewhat inconvenient. And
Yeah.
so that's the enticement here to StockTrim is if you have seasonal sales and you find yourself updating your reorder points too frequently, then StockTrim is a great consideration. And as you see,
That's a great point, actually. Yep, that's the great point, and that you raise, Lance, because that's where StockTrim actually fills the gap. Because a lot of the systems don't actually have that, as you mentioned. They just work off of reorder points, right? Okay, and then there is a auto creation of a PO, but forecasting is a bit different, obviously, and you want to be able to do that on a continuous basis. So yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah. And Neil, on the previous screen, you showed us an algorithmic forecast, which I think is important to point out, not just a linear forecast. And so you're taking previous sales, previous years, previous seasons,
Yes.
and also allowing the customer to say, well, in this month and this month and this month, this is my crystal ball. This is my personal crystal ball. It's predicting that our sales are going to increase or decrease this month and this month and this month.
Yes.
And that's super important, I think, to have that. Now, what about work orders? Is there a magic button for work orders? Will it automatically create?
So you can extract out of StockTrim, production quantities, for example. So for your finished goods, if you want to bring out the PO quantity, sorry, the work order amounts, you could filter here on the order plan for just finished goods to see the recommendation, then extract that information out to Excel, and then go away and create the work order from there. But like I said, I think we should have hopefully by the end of the year a manufacturing order right back to Fishbowl. We're going to push pretty strongly to try and do that, I think.
I think we're all hoping and waiting for that. And just to be clear to everyone watching this video, it's not StockTrim's fault. This is on Fishbowl. Fishbowl has not built their API out yet to really allow work order creation through their API. You have to write. I mean, there are some developers that can do it, and if you're absolutely desperate, we can write directly to their database. But if anything goes wrong, if there's any data corruption, Fishbowl support won't help you because that's against the maintenance agreement to write directly to the database. So that's last resort desperation if you have to do something like that. And of course, StockTrim, like many other software programs, are waiting for Fishbowl's API surrounding work order creation and work order rescheduling. We're still waiting for that too. So, but this is great. We at least have algorithmic forecasting and automated purchase order creation. Now, Neil, I wanted to point out something that you just sort of skipped over, I think, but is probably one of the biggest selling points of a software like yours. And that was back on your dashboard. Back on your dashboard, you estimated overstock. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Yes.
So any item that has an amount that we currently think that you're overstocked on, If you give us also the cost and the price values, we'll show a value of that overstock and how many items are currently in that situation. So if I click on here, for example, I can go straight in and see exactly how many items we've got a number here in green. You can see it's showing how many units are in excess for each item. So you can very quickly jump in and go, okay, do we need to have a look at some of these SKUs in more detail? Do some of them need to be disposed of or put on promotion to try and get the stock back within level? But yeah, it's just a way for us for the client ultimately to drill in very, very quickly and go, okay, here's the SKUs that are overstocked, here's the SKUs that are understocked or never been sold, or incredibly slow moving. All those filters are available here to be able to drill down very quickly on.
Now, overstock, when I first talk to customers who are just using Fishbowl for the first time, or even after they've used Fishbowl for a while, and they haven't really caught on to reorder points and healthy defined stock levels and automated purchasing. Excuse me. Overstock is something to really think about, and it might be hard to consider. Sometimes it's more of a gut guess, right? How much do you feel you are overstocked? And one of the advantages, or one of the rewards for successfully accomplishing accurate inventory, is we can use these automated tools, right? A lot of people buy inventory software because they want their inventory to be accurate. But why? Well, it's so we can make informed purchasing decisions. It's so we can have accurate forecasting tools, right? If you do the groundwork properly with receiving and picking and shipping and scheduling your sales orders, scheduling your work orders, scheduling your purchase orders, then your reward is this type of powerful automation. And your overstock is comfortably and confidently going to decrease. It's a huge, powerful advantage. So we started out this video thinking, let's see. Okay, so we started out this video talking about how much StockTrim costs, right? Relatively inexpensive, if you ask me. A couple $100 a month, a few $100s a month. But think about how much overstock you may have. What I see most customers doing is cushioning. When their inventory is not accurate, or when they don't have any purchasing tool other than what's in an Excel spreadsheet, then overstock is much more than what Neil showed us. Neil showed us a number around 8,000, which I thought was like ridiculously low. I don't think that's an accurate representation of what most people have in overstock. I see overstock around the $100,000 range, $200,000 range, right? So what you need to think about when you're thinking about your ROI for a tool like StockTrim and Fishbowl Inventory is your overstock should comfortably reduce. Take the $100,000, take the $20,000, the $50,000 off the shelf and comfortably put it back in your bank account to be used for other things. And that's the goal. That's one of the main goals of having the Fishbowl Inventory StockTrim mix, right? Is to get that confidence level of, oh, hey, I can more comfortably run lean. So I'll invest a couple $100 a month. Like, that's nothing, right? A few $100 a month. I'll invest 10 grand, 20 grand in Fishbowl or whatever it is. And the result is going to be a reduction of overstock and also happier customers. So not just reduction of overstock, but reduction of stock outs. When we have stock outs, we lose sales, right? Customers are unhappy. And so this is this is going to increase profits and reduce excessive overstock. So what are you showing us here, Aga?
Absolutely, yeah. That just perfectly leads into what you just said. Pretty much our mission is bring up that cash flow that you were just mentioning very eloquently, that customers can actually save a lot of money if they streamline this piece of their supply chain, right? Where they want to be able to forecast accurately, obviously, and smartly, right? I mean, the data has to make sense to them. It's not just like spitting out reports. Obviously, what data we pull in from, let's say, from Fishbowl, and then what goes back into Fishbowl, right, from StockTrim, that has to make sense. That purchase order, the purchasing sequence has to make sense for the customer, so they don't have to go back and forth into the systems. Hey, something's wrong here, something's wrong here. So that is, again, over time, that obviously frees up their time a lot, so they can focus on actually forecasting and supply and what they want to be able to do, supplier agreements, for example, and what arrangements they want to do, reduce the lead times, for example, you know what I mean? So it all ties in to the bottom line, right? So that is where the cash flow, freeing up the cash flow comes in, actually. And what this actually eventually results in is the what we have sort of estimated, and you alluded to this as in terms of the ROI, is the 40%, about up to 40% reduction in working capital, right? So that is what we have seen with the customers that we have, and that massively improves, frees up the cash flows, gives them a lot more to sort of work with, and a lot more in terms of the timing as well. So in terms of the time, we have estimated about 75% of our customers actually, imagine you having to do all these manual processes, obviously, managing multiple spreadsheets from one data point to the other data point, right? So again, that is the whole purpose of StockTrim, to make life easier when it comes to reordering, right? And to keep track of that ordering, keep track of that supply chain, to keep that going, right? Obviously, think of it as a supply chain, not a last mile, but like an inventory level last mile, sort of a purchasing last mile. That's where StockTrim actually adds value. That is pretty much in a nutshell. That's what it kind of software is for.
Yeah. Well, Aga, thank you, and Neil, thank you. This has been great. So if StockTrim or Fishbowl look interesting to you, please reach out to us for a demo, and we'll get you hooked up.
Yeah. Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.